Good afternoon, everybody. Christine Barconi here in the NBC4i Streaming Center. We want to bring on, because people are really talking a lot about this online. It is Dr. Acton stepping down from her position at a nonprofit to explore a run for Senate. No better person to bring on right now than Colleen Marshall and our political experts, Mike Gonadakis and Lou Gentile, joining us right now to discuss. Guys, take it away. What do you think?
I like that you say exploring, because I think I can get both Mike and Lou to agree to me that she would not step down from her job at the Columbus Foundation unless she is going to be running for the United States Senate. I think that this is a sure thing, and I'm going to ask you, Mike is our Republican strategist today, Lou is a Democrat. Do you both agree with me that she would not have resigned her job if she was not going to run?
I think, yeah, sure. I think it's, Colleen, obviously a very serious step that Dr. Acton has taken today, and it signals what could be to come with a possible launch of a U.S. Senate campaign. I'll add, too, though, that other candidates are looking at this closely, most notably U.S. Congressman Tim Ryan from the Mahoning Valley, somebody I'm very close to. We cannot forget about our Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, the head of the Congressional Black Caucus, somebody that's been talked about. And other names have surfaced and have been talked about, Mayor Whaley out of the Dayton area. So still a little ways to go, but certainly today's move, I think, by Dr. Acton signals a serious step towards launching a Senate bid.
Let me ask you, Mike, do you not only agree with me that she's going to likely run, but what kind, from a Republican perspective, what kind of a candidate would she be to go up against? What are her strengths and what are her vulnerabilities?
I encourage everyone to run, and if Dr. Acton so chooses to run, that's great. We live in America. But I think, saying you're running and actually filing your petitions on filing deadline are two different things. So we'll see how far she goes. With that, I think strengths she has is she's obviously a very intelligent woman, a professional, and she's had media exposure. She's had a break from it, but she's had media exposure, both positive and negative, I guess, depending on your point of view in life, of course. So you would think that she's got at least the Central Ohio crowd well attuned to who she is. Outside of Central Ohio, I don't know, Colleen. If you ask people who the director of Department of Health is, they probably don't know. Now, Amy Acton had her profile raised a lot nationally and stuff, so it helps her. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to have to look at a Tim Ryan first. I think it's Tim Ryan's if he wants it. Hillary Clinton didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to tweet something nice about Tim Ryan. It's calculated. She's going to be able to bring money in for Tim Ryan if he chooses to run. And he's a formidable candidate. He's got a great track record, and he's well liked with rural and urban Democrats is what you need to win.
Okay, guys, well, I also want to ask you then, let's talk about some Republican possibilities. This is a seat that's been held by a Republican now for quite some time. Rob Portman announcing that he's leaving after his second term ends in 2022, giving the field 2 years to lay the groundwork. So let's talk about what Republican names are likely to rise to the top for this ticket. What do you think, Mike? Your party.
Sure. We went from this many people running 2 weeks ago to probably this many people running. We've got a couple congressmen that are dipping their toes in the water, but at the end of the day, they have an easy path to getting reelected to Congress, which is probably what they'll take. So we're looking at two formidable candidates, in my humble opinion. Jane Timken, the current chairwoman of the Ohio Republican Party, and former state treasurer Josh Mandel, who's sitting on $4.3 million in a federal campaign account and has a great relationship with the conservative base, both the pro-life community as well as the Second Amendment community. So he's going to be formidable. Now, what Jim Jordan does, if he endorses one or the other, will tip the scale a little bit. If former President Trump weighs in, that could tip the scale too. So there's some unknowns. But I think at the end of the day, Colleen, my personal opinion, it's a two-person race on the Republican side.
Lou, let me ask you about that then. Who do you expect to see on the Republicans, and what do you think their strengths and their weaknesses might be? And as he said, Josh Mandel hasn't been in the public eye for a while, but one of his strengths obviously is going to be that pile of money he's sitting on.
Well, certainly will be for him, but also Jane Timken comes from a pretty well-to-do family, has spent the last several years as the chairwoman of the Republican Party. So I imagine fundraising is something she could pull together, over the next 2 years. Look, I think from the Democratic standpoint, what we're hoping for, we really wanted to see Jim Jordan run and win and secure the nomination. I think Democrats were really hoping that would occur, or a Jim Renacci. We want to run against somebody who's divisive, somebody who is going to pull sort of lose votes among independents and swing voters in Ohio. And so regardless of what happens, the question for me is, can the Democrats nominate a candidate, put ourselves in the best possible position, not only to energize our base, the Democrats in the urban areas, African-American voters, black voters, we have to be strong with black and brown voters in the urban areas and the suburban areas, but we also have to be competitive in small towns and in rural communities, places like Steubenville, like Youngstown and Warren and Portsmouth, Ohio, and these small, mid-sized manufacturing towns. So whoever the Democrats nominate, we have to keep in mind that winning our base is critical, but also not getting destroyed in some of these smaller parts of Ohio, which make up a large share of the state, some 80 counties where you have small towns and rural communities. So Republicans are going to do what they do. I think Trump will have some role in this race, and whoever can get that Trump base to turn out. But I think you've got to do better than just that. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to use the Sherrod Brown model here in Ohio and win a Senate seat in 2022.
It's interesting to hear you say that you were hoping you would go up against someone like a Jim Jordan or Jim Renacci, both of them strongly in the camp of Donald Trump. But remember, Donald Trump carried this state by more than 8 points. So if you are going up against someone like Donald Trump, you might have an uphill battle.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I mean, Donald Trump, sort of a cult of personality in and of himself. I don't know that. I mean, look at Jim Renacci's track record. Ran against Sherrod Brown, wasn't successful. So I'm not sure that's the case. I do think the Democrats, it's critical to nominate a candidate that can have appeal to swing voters, to independents, to suburbanites. I think there's a formula to win, albeit I agree that there's a strong movement here in Ohio around Donald Trump, but I think it's still a winnable state.
What do you think about all that, Mike? Do you think that your party would be better off with somebody who's a little more centrist or somebody who's pretty far to the right, like a Renacci, like a Jim Jordan?
If Jim Jordan ran, I think he would win. I don't think Jim Renacci would. But at the end of the day, people just don't turn off their values and who they vote for in Eastern Ohio and Steubenville, as Lou said, and those other places. And Republican candidates are representing more of the working class than they have in the past. And if the former president weighs in, then it could tip the scale. But at the end of the day, Colleen, you nailed it. 8 points. He beat Hillary by 8 points. Donald Trump beat Biden by 8 points. It's a red state. So whoever the Democrat nominee is, and their best shot, in my opinion, is Tim Ryan, because he comes from that rural Rust Belt part of the state and can speak to the language that are Trump voters. Eastern Ohio has become Trump country. In the Ohio Senate, Republicans are winning those Senate seats that the Democrats used to hold in the Ohio House as well. So if you can get someone that can speak the language of Eastern Ohio and Southern Ohio, the Democrats will have a shot. If they go with a far left candidate, a Republican's going to be a shoo-in.
Sherrod Brown would tell you that this might not necessarily be an entirely red state, that it might be a little purple. He's been able to carry the state every time he's been on the ballot. Right. Before I let you guys go, we started this talking about Amy Acton and what she's considering and maybe laying the groundwork. If you are a candidate, a serious contender, to get on the ballot for that seat in your party's primary between now and 2022, what are you doing right now? What should they be doing right now? Who should they be reaching out to? And how should they be trying to get their ducks in a row?
You'd have to be glued to the phone, really, and prepared to travel to every county once you're able to do so. But certainly lining up support in the Black community, with Black leaders, with organized labor, which is a critical part of the Democratic base, and funders, with in-state donors, but also national donors. I think for somebody like Dr. Acton, who has not run a campaign before, yes, she has some notoriety from her position, but has never put together an infrastructure, isn't known by the political establishment. It's going to take some time and some work and effort to do that. I think if you're someone like Tim Ryan or Joyce Beatty or Mayor Whaley or Amelia Sykes, for that matter, you're sort of in a position, those folks know who you are. So she's got a lot of work to do if she's going to enter the race, and is going to need to really start to build relationships across all of Ohio very, very quickly.
And what do you think about that,
On
Mike?
the Republican side, I would submit that, the base votes, the conservative base votes on the Republican side, the liberal base votes in a primary on the Democrat side. So conservative, the candidates are running need to shore up support of the NRA, the Second Amendment crowd, Ohio Right to Life, and traditional associations that care, social conservative organizations, and so on and so forth. And then get to the county chairs. There's 88 county chairs in Ohio. You got to have a relationship with them to talk, because you got to be able to win that primary, whether it's head to head or 4 or 5 people running. And once you do that, the most important thing really is money. You better raise the money, because if you don't have the money, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
And talking to these donors and the infrastructure and building that out takes a lot of time. I worked with Ted Strickland when he was governor to do that. I had to do that in a 10-county district. It takes years and time. So there's not a lot of time. There's 3 things you can't get back in the campaign. One of those is time.
Yeah. And what they all need is money. It's probably going to cost about, we've talked about this, $25 million at least. And there's going to be a lot of outside money coming into this state, because it's an open Senate seat in a Senate that's struggling to decide which party might land on top in 2022. Gentlemen, we thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the money, I think, will be there, at least for Democratic candidates. I think if you saw in Georgia what has happened across the country, special elections in Central Ohio, I think because the Senate is so close, I would tell candidates that are considering the Senate bid that they're going to have to work hard, but there will be resources nationally that they'll have access to.
Yeah. And I imagine, Mike, same thing for the Republicans?
We always thought Rob was going to run for re-election, so we got to hold this seat. I will tell you, when you're in D.C. and you're controlling the purse strings, you didn't look at Ohio as something you'd had to put money in, because you just figured Rob Portman were going to get reelected. Now the Democrats have 10, 12 seats they got to defend, party out of power, which is Republicans always historically does good in a midterm. So Democrats control the White House and Congress. Midterm elections are coming. Democrats need to husband their resources to make sure that they can maintain what they have. Who knows if they're going to have enough money to throw into Ohio? It remains to be seen.
All right, gentlemen, thank you both for being with us and sharing your thoughts with us. And Christine, here we are in a television station, and it seems counterintuitive to say, well, these races are too expensive, because that money's going to be coming our way.
We were chatting on our Teams chat just the other day about that. Hey, gentlemen, I'm going to hang up the Zoom here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
I was chatting on our Teams chat the other day, and I was like, we've got a gubernatorial race. We have a Senate race.
It's going to be a big election year. And really, even through 2021, we're going to see a lot of action on the political front in this state, because we are seeing so many people jockeying for positions. So,
for us, for journalists, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. And those 2 gentlemen are going to be with us Sunday morning on the Spectrum. We're also going to be talking about not just that Senate race, but some of the budget battles that are underway at the State House, the COVID rollout. So lots to talk about. A busy week coming up on the Spectrum.
Very busy week. Thank you, Colleen. And we'll clip this and put it up on NBC4i.com. And you can read more about Dr. Acton and the others who are possibly going to run for that 2022 Senate race. Should be exciting over the next few years. Bye.